Thank you, Tucker. Members of the public wishing to participate in a meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who does not use their full name or acts inappropriately. That's a notice. Confirming member access. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Allison Mitchell.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Present.
Rima Sherry.
Here.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Ken Bogran.
In attendance.
Thank you. I don't know that we have, we have anticipated speakers?
We do.
Andrew
Andrew
Mulcahy, excuse me.
Aye.
and Dave Arminetti.
Dave Arminetti,
Present. Good afternoon. Hi.
thank you.
And Billy Cassidy.
Mr. Cassidy,
Hi, everybody. I'm here. I wasn't planning on speaking, however, unless you have a question.
when we get to that part, we'll see.
Thank you.
This open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured in the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noticed. The public is encouraged to follow along using the agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We'll now turn to the first item on the agenda, but permit me to cover ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go through the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken for anything on public comment, the chair will afford to those members of the public who have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names, be acknowledged, and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be taken by roll call. Okay, so now moving to the agenda and the first item. I guess it's an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
by roll call, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rick Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Approval of minutes held to the August meeting, so we're gonna keep that and move it forward. Item number 4, is there any public comment that's not otherwise on the agenda? Tucker?
I just wanted, as everybody knows, Jim Lentowski passed away and his service was today. He provided a tremendous service to the community in terms of the quality of life we all enjoy here today. And just wanted to take a moment to remember Jim.
Thank you, Tucker. Any other members of the public with any comment? Moving to the next item. You're on. Juana, you need to take yourself off of mute.
Yes, so we were told to join the meeting by Andrew. Okay,
Excellent. So we're
All
gonna
right.
we're gonna come to you in a little bit in the agenda. If you go on mute now, I'll call you when we get to you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Item number 5 was a CCAP application for 45 Beachgrass Road. If I understand correctly, this application may not be ready for today, Tucker, and will be moved to a later date. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. We did not receive all of the final documents for that, and so that will be on the August agenda most likely.
Great. Thank you. The next item is a CFAP application for 4 Hull Lane. I think we've seen this before and it needed a little bit of work. So here we are back. And I think, Andrew, are you taking us down this road?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So the Juanita and Junior Gill have joined us today as well. And they have been to the building inspector and essentially, I don't know if we had looked at the map before, but their secondary dwelling that they were hoping to sell into the covenant program, they needed to have it clearly defined just as one family dwelling area rather than, so I don't know if you want me to share the screen and show what I'm talking about, but essentially they've gotten their COs and it's now one secondary dwelling.
I think those were those permits and COs were distributed to the trust and either were after or included in the packet. So I don't know that we need a screen share at the moment.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Andrew or Juanita on their application or? Brooke?
It seems clear to me that the building permit and the CO that was issued was the purpose of it was to take 2 units and make them into a single family unit. And now they're registered in the with the building department and in their file as a single unit, which was the issue that was a problem for us the first time we saw this. So I think it seems like everything's in order. So.
Great. So along with that, the recognition that everything is in order, is there a motion on the application? Oh, Tucker?
Just one small item when whomever is making the motion, it's been the practice with these closing formation assistance programs that the trust is underwriting the recording cost, which is for the mortgage, our security in this program. And so I would like the motion to include that the fee that we pay to Housing Nantucket, which is basically $750 per CFAP application, be augmented to include the recording fee. Thank you.
Any continued conversation on it? With that, look for a motion. Brooke?
So I'll give it a whirl. Do we want to, okay, so we'll do it this time and then maybe change the program overall at another meeting when it's on the agenda. Okay, so I move that the Covenant Formation Assistance Program application for the Gills at 4 Hull Lane be approved and that the fee paid to Housing Nantucket be augmented by the closing costs, in addition to the $750 usual administration fee.
The recording fee.
Recording fee. I'm sorry, recording fee and not closing costs. Correct.
Second.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have a motion and a second from Penny, a vote by roll call. Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Juanita, Andrew, thank you for going through the process. We really appreciate you creating another affordable housing unit. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks.
We appreciate you attending. You're welcome to watch the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to stay. We'll just be talking a lot.
Okay,
All right,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a
good
good night.
afternoon, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
The next item, we have a housing production plan update. Tucker, do you want to lead us through where we are with the various boards in there?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a short update. As the board knows, we had approved the plan at the last trust meeting. It went on from there to the planning board, which unanimously approved the plan as forwarded, and it goes before the select board tomorrow evening. And so, subject to the small revisions that we all discussed at our meeting earlier this month, it would then go on to the state for final approval. I'll mention on Judy's behalf again that if anyone has photos that they feel would help punctuate and illustrate the plan, please forward them to me and I'll make sure Judy gets them. The final version will have some more graphic elements included.
Any comments or for Tucker, or thank you for making those presentations, appreciated. Okay, so next item we have on the agenda is Six Fairgrounds Tacoma Green update. There was some information circulated by the state, the tax awards. I don't know if everybody saw it, but I'll leave it to Tucker to go kind of through it. Pretty exciting news.
Yeah, I think the board is aware, but since we last met, we received word that the project at Six Fairgrounds Tacoma Green will be receiving a tax credit award. There's still some details to work out in that, since this project began and the delays associated with the lawsuit, construction costs have obviously gone up considerably. There may ultimately be a gap beyond what the tax credit and other subsidies can cover. And so that, there may be a role that we, as the trust in town, ultimately need to play. But I can say that the developer had requested 13 million between state and federal tax credits, and we understand that the project has been allocated what it needed, quote unquote, as well, which is very significant. You all may remember a few years ago, we were fortunate to host the Undersecretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Crystal Cornegay. At the time, she went on from DHCD to become the executive director, effectively the CEO of Mass Housing. And she as well was at this event, and Mass Housing has been holding $2.9 million for this project on top of the tax credit money toward the workforce units. They've been holding this money for 3 years, despite that program at Mass Housing not receiving any additional funding in recent years from the state. So it's we're certainly very grateful to them that they have stuck with this. And so in a way, this is, the point at which the hard work begins, but, quite exciting to be given this opportunity to finally move forward with the project.
Thank you, Tucker. Brooke?
Tucker, is there some place, I don't want to add anything else to your plate, but can I draft a letter of thanks to someone to go out from this board? Are there people to whom we should send thank yous?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. And the answer is definitely yes. The question is a little bit about the timing of the thank you, because we are in a little bit of a, my understanding is that the formal award has not been issued to the developer, somewhat pending the resolution on the gap financing. So the monies have been reserved, it's allocated toward the project, but everyone has known this season that there were likely need to be some supplemental funds. And, construction costs have been fluctuating. Fortunately, wood prices and so forth have been coming down more recently. So I think right now the developer is probably working on putting a very fine point on what the final gap might look like. And so I know that's a bit of a long answer, but I would say stay tuned, and we will absolutely want to do that. I mean, I did have the opportunity to attend the event with the developer, and certainly extended a lot of, verbal thank yous to these folks. I had a chance to meet with Kate Racer, who is the guru of tax credits at DHCD, and really the person who recommended making this award, as well as the present Undersecretary Crystal, et cetera, et cetera. So we are saying thank you all along the way.
Excellent. Thank you. The next item we have on the agenda, I think we'll pass to Anne, a 31 Fairgrounds timetable review. I do understand Billy is here and available for questions, but Anne, if you want to lead this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's Ann Cuspa from Housing Nantucket. And things are moving along swimmingly at 31 Fairgrounds. I'm really happy to report that. We are calling it Wiggles Way, which I think a lot of you know. So we just kind of go through some of this stuff, which I think you know already, but the special permit was filed December 18th, 2020, and we amended it on June 7th, and that was through the planning boards of this year. We just changed the shape a little bit to make it more of a rectangular entry and drive around and parking. We have started our HDC process. We began the process for some of the buildings. There's technically eight buildings, which these 22 units will be in. And the review has been submitted already for 1 and 8, and 1, 2, 3, and 8. So that began on July 6th, and buildings 6 and 7 were submitted July 12th. We're also getting some ADA review. So that's the Americans with Disabilities Act. So some of these units will be ADA accessible, and that should be ready for submission the first week of August. We hope to have the buildings go through the HDC process as quickly as possible, and the town has been really great about moving them along, because HDC, I believe they have a bit of a backup. So because of the urgency of affordable housing, we've been pushed to the front of the agenda, which is very, very good. Then let's see, we'll be ordering the modules. Let's say we've already done a soft order. So just kind of putting all of that into them so they know this order is coming, but we hope to put the formal order in on about August 15th. The buildings that were on the site, you probably noticed if you've driven by, have been removed, and the site work is to begin about the week of September 13th. So that'll be like the infrastructure. We're going to start significant site work at that time. We expect that the modular components will be arriving the week of October 25th or so. Then the construction period will start, as I said, on September 13th and go through June of 2022. Landscaping will track construction. We will put in some new perimeter privacy fencing so that the neighbors won't be disturbed, or at least they'll be disturbed as little as possible, and keep the site safe. And then anticipated occupancy about, say, July 2022, so second quarter of 2022. And it will be a construction site, so it'll be like a rolling occupancy. We're working on, for anybody who's interested in getting on our list or expressing that they would like to get more information about it, we're not technically accepting applications just yet. And then for the designated affordable units, those will be awarded through lottery, and we'll start advertising for those about 3 months before the units are ready to be occupied. So let's say March 2022, we'll put out the formal advertising in the paper, and then have the lottery probably, June-ish. But we're trying to get like a preliminary form, and we expect to launch that in the beginning of August so that we can get your income information and how many people are in your household, just kind of an expression of interest, so that when these units are available, we'll be able to just directly target people and their household size and the income bracket that we're trying to serve. So we'll be launching that soon. And that's about it.
Thank you, Anne.
Mhm.
Does anybody on the board have questions for Anne or for Mr. Cassidy? Brooke?
And this is a bit of a rhetorical question, but hopefully that outreach and marketing and forms will be available in Spanish and Portuguese as well as English.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
Great, thank you.
Wilda's Falconer is at our office also. I mean, you can call anytime. All of our applications are available in Spanish, and she speaks Spanish as one of her primary languages, so she can help with any specific questions in those languages.
Great. Just wanted that on the record.
Thank you, Anne.
Good thing.
Mr. Cassidy, do you have any comment, or are you all set, or?
I think Ann did a great job. I would suggest that we're actually approved. Building number 3 was approved last Tuesday night at the HDC. So that was the first of the beginning.
Awesome work. Thank you guys for the hard work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Seeing no more hands from the board, we'll close this item. Move to the next. As soon as okay, great. Now I can get my agenda back. I think we have Dave and the Richmond Wildflower Acceleration Timetable Review. Mr. Arminetti, can I give you the floor?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be before you again, and want to again thank your board for all your leadership and guidance continuing here in our collaboration. We as well are moving along pretty efficiently here on getting our project out of the ground and getting the housing built, which we all agree is the end goal here. We were able to get our HDC approval for all of our buildings in early June, and we appreciate getting that expedited. The leadership on the HDC was very helpful there. We've got the vast majority of our site work done: water, sewer, drainage, base grading. Electrical is starting to go in. And from a construction permitting standpoint, we are through the first stages of all the modular permitting, and we're now into the third-party state review with all 3 of the buildings simultaneously. That is taking a bit more time now due to partly remaining COVID overhang issues and partly just due to the amount of projects that are going through these third-party review services, which we don't control. So we're probably in that review for another 5-6 weeks. But in the meantime, we've been interacting with the building department so that they know these final plans are coming and finishing up everything related to the local review. Other long lead time items we've been working on and ordering. We anticipate starting construction sometime in the end of the third quarter this year, hopefully. The buildings will start one at a time, but there'll be quite a bit of overlap once we get going. They'll only be a couple of weeks behind between each other in terms of getting shipped to the island. And one of the things we did proactively that's going to help us, not just in this project, but on the rest of our development, is we took the risk and pre-leased one of the only 2 barges that are available to bring modular product over. So we exclusively control that barge and had to take the risk and put quite a bit of money up to do that. So we won't get delayed as some other builders and some other buyers are getting delayed because they can't get a barge spot. So that's good. Our financing is progressing. The town financing was finalized and we got our first tranche of funds there, which we appreciate. And our construction mini perm loan with Eastern Bank is in the final stages of appraisal and approval. We expect to close that loan in the 2nd or 3rd week of August, and then it'll all be down to construction, conducting our outreach and our lottery through the fall, and getting the buildings built, getting them occupied. We, as many of the board members know, from your interaction in general and your knowledge of the market and some communication with our team, the demand out there is, completely unabated and unsatiated. We now are up to a fully vetted waiting list of more than 450 people who could move in tomorrow if we had a place for them, and about 1,000 essentially pre-vetted applicants. So we can't build them fast enough. We can't rent them fast enough, and we're doing all we can to get this next phase in and looking ahead to the subsequent phases of our project, which will be a 16-unit component that will get going to HDC later this summer, early in the fall, and just keep things rolling. So, we're dealing with some of the same issues that everybody's dealing with in terms of construction pricing and logistics, but we're managing them. And the good news is, partly thanks to your board and your leadership and that of the select board, we were a little ahead of the curve here in terms of the real peak of some of these construction pricing issues and construction supply line and supply chain issues. So we're a little ahead of the curve there, which is good and should help us get things occupied in the time frame that we're anticipating, which is kind of late in the first quarter, early in the second quarter of next year. So thank you again for your efforts. Glad to answer any questions and keep the pedal to the metal.
Great, thank you, Dave. I just have one follow-up question. You said that you have 450 vetted applications that could be approved and 1,000 total applications for families looking for housing units?
Yeah, we have kind of a more vetted waiting list where we've actually checked employment or credit so that we know that people are, for lack of a better phrase, really real in terms of being able to qualify. And this is for kind of a combination of market rate and AMI restricted. I'm not distinguishing really between the two. But then we have kind of a second tier list where we haven't made the effort through our management and property staff to, check credit, check employment, those kind of things. But those people, have indicated of actual interest and a need. They are local. So, we expect, with rare exception, that they would qualify in terms of credit and employment. And, we obviously, being the significant player in the market that we are now and knowing the critical nature of the issue, we're being very flexible where we have to, within reason, with our qualifying criteria. I don't think we've really bounced more than a handful of people for credit or employment purposes. And as you can imagine, those were, so obvious that the parole board probably wouldn't have approved them. So, it's just, you guys are on the front line even more so than us. The magnitude of the problem. Every day more people call, every day more people just walk into our office, sometimes in tears, about to lose their housing. You know, everybody on this call deals with it almost daily. And, you know, we just feel, you know, we're doing the best we can along with everybody else. It's just unfortunate that the magnitude of the problem is so great that it's barely a dip of sand in the hourglass, you know?
Great. Thank you, Dave. Brooke, did you have a question for?
Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second. Dave, hi, thank you so much. Through you, Brian. 450, that's like 450 units that are needed for
Yeah,
those
I'm
people.
sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, not individuals where if it's a family of four counts for one. That's literally, you know, 400 plus unit applicants vetted to some level in terms of credit and employment and, you know, a real address on the island, that kind of thing. Yep.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure when I start talking about this number that I know that it's accurate what I'm saying. And then on another subject, and it's not related to this, but I'm curious how you're doing on the 175% units, because I know there were some challenges getting qualified applicants. And if you're able to answer that today, or if you could, you know, answer it by email through Tucker later, whichever is great. I just want to throw that question out.
Yeah, sure. Through you, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes, of course.
We're doing better, I think, partly due to some additional marketing and attention, although we're going to ramp that up some more. And we've actually talked to Ann and her team about collaborating and doing that. Some of it, I think, as we talk about in general with our development now, you know, we've kind of passed a tipping point or crossed the Rubicon, whatever phrase you want to use, where it's no longer just a plan on a wall. It's a neighborhood now that's coming out of the ground that people can see and understand. And now they have friends that might have bought there or rented there or living there or working there. And so we're getting, I think, a lot more organic attention in that way where, oh, I didn't know you guys were this far along. So as relates to the 175% AMI homes, which, you know, we only have 9 of, we don't have a huge number of throughout the whole project, as the board might recall, but we have now, I think, 3 qualified or at some level qualified applicants on deck in the waiting room. And we've got 2 of those units getting built in the next, at least the modulars are coming over in the next 4 to 6 months. So it is, we are getting more demand. We are having an easier time qualifying those people, and I would expect that would continue. We're not seeing that issue with the 80% applicants. Those are a lot more numerous and a lot more readily qualifiable. But probably what you're getting at, and I know you and I have had multiple conversations about this, Brooke, is the fundamental problem with the 175% segment of the market continues, which is those people are desperate for housing. They'd love to own a home. They're perfect candidates for it. They've got good jobs. They can pay the mortgage once they get the mortgage. They just don't have the liquidity to get the financing. And even though the local banks, in particular Cape Cod 5, are willing to be a little flexible in terms of developer participation and other creative ways, not enough so where we've been able to get more of these people over the hump. So, you know, other than the supply and demand issue on the rental side, which we just spoke about, I would say the biggest single problem that I see, you know, within this sector specifically is that there's so many of those people out there that are the bread and butter of the community, the exact demographic, if you will, that we talked about in all of our outreach in terms of the firefighters, the lab techs, the teachers, the TSA agent at the airport. You know, they still are getting shut out because, you know, they've got $30,000 that they can put down to a down payment and closing costs, but they don't have 80 or 90, and that's what it costs to buy a 175% unit. So that's the biggest single problem that we continue to see. And, you know, it's a small slice of the market, but as you know, every day, the people you meet on the street, a lot of the people that you see in your homes and with your families, that's a segment that really needs help. And if there's a more creative solution out there that everybody could really work on, that would go a long way.
Sorry, Rima, you have a question for Dave?
Through you, Brian, not a question. I just want to thank you for sharing those numbers, Dave, and that information, because it's the real deal, you know, and out on the street, I hear, well, they're going to be empty. There's no one for them. Like, well, there are people for them. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on the 175s. It just goes to show that we really do need a down payment assistance program. It would be really helpful for, you know, a certain segment of the population. And thanks for your work.
Sure, thank you.
Allison?
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, just if you need a face for exactly what Dave and Rima just said. Yep, that's me and my family. We're in exactly that boat. So thank you very much, Dave, for mentioning that.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Allison. And Brooke, did you have one more? You have a follow-up?
Yeah, one more question, Dave. Sorry to put you on the spot. The 80% units are allocated how? I know there was a lottery at one point. Did that then create a waiting list for the units as they come online?
Yeah, we have, because of the number of units we have and the fact that they're spread out over time a little bit, we have to have multiple lotteries. So the first one we had was for the first chunk of 4 or 5 80% units. Those initial applicants qualified. A couple of them are now teed up and just waiting for COs and finishing construction. And we have a couple more qualified in the wings and a waiting list that's now being established. Because of the lead time, people are not as committed to really submitting the information and getting on the waiting list. They basically have given us, through our staff, their name and number and said, when you get closer to the next phase coming up where people can, quote unquote, really apply, let us know and we'll apply. So that works fine in practice. You know, we keep a pretty active rolling list of people who are interested. So there's definitely demand out there. And again, we have, I think it's 17 total 80% AMI units in our project. A couple of them are duplexes, most of them are single family. 5 or 6 of those are under construction or at various stages of development and construction now. So they'll all get rolled out, you know, 2 or 3 at a time over the course of the next few years. But we're doing everything we can to expedite those too. I think you'll see that the pace of the AMI construction is going to pick up here now that we've got the rest of our infrastructure going in Sandpiper 2. We're just hopefully days or a week or two away from literally our final land court action to clear up all the title of the streets and roads that we abandoned with the town and did all the friendly eminent domain takings with, so we can finally start to convey and get financing on these lots in the northern part of our subdivision. So a lot more of that 80% and 175 AMI housing will start getting on the docket now as well in the next year or two, as opposed to 3-4 years out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any more for Dave, or can we free him up? There's one, if the board's all set, I see one question from the public, Billy Cassidy.
Mr. Chairman, something that Dave just mentioned right there was startling to me, and that was the down payment necessary for a 175 AMI priced home, I believe. What is that number? What is that figure? The purchase price.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Please.
The pre-COVID maximum purchase price for a 175 AMI house under the DHCD formulas is $775,000. And that price is too high for the buyers to qualify for FHA financing. So the only mortgage programs that they can be availed of are the Cape Cod 5 local no PMI program, which is 10.1%. So that's, you know, plus or minus $80,000 in a down payment plus closing costs, unless you can get closing cost assistance. and it costs the better part of $90,000 to close. So that's how that math works. Or come up with a 20% conventional down payment or a conventional mortgage with PMI. And at that kind of price point, the PMI starts to really add up and becomes a real impediment. So that's the basic math we're dealing with.
Understood, and thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good to see everybody.
You too. Okay, seeing no more on that item, we'll move to item number 11 for an update on the housing real estate specialist hire. And I'll put that to Tucker and also open it up to Ken for any comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so Ken and I have been working with Amanda Perry, the town's HR director, on job description and so forth. And I think we have it at a place where it's ready to roll out from our perspective. Amanda is doing her thing with it. And I think the general timetable, as she outlined it when we met with her last week, was she would anticipate the job being posted on or around the end of this month. It generally gets posted for at least 2 weeks. There obviously is an interview period, depending on the candidate themselves. They may need to be giving notice wherever they are presently employed. And so, I think speaking realistically, it may be mid to late September, before we really have someone like in place in the position. And I'll ask Ken for any additional comments he has.
Nothing to add, just prayer.
Great, thank you guys. Item number 12. So we're going to open up the community land trust discussion and where the opportunities can kind of go there and talk about that. So Tucker, I'm going to open to you to kind of lead the beginning of this conversation.
Sure. So, I mean, I think as the board knows, this is something that we have, given some thought to for quite some time. We've had the opportunity over recent years to have, I guess, what I would call informal conversations with Philippe Jordy at the Island Housing Trust on the Vineyard, as well with a guy named John Davis up in Burlington, Vermont, who is kind of the grandfather of community land trusts. We think that a community land trust for Nantucket is perhaps like the next natural evolution for where we're headed in the year-round housing puzzle. I think, as folks know, a lot of what we've been focused on in recent years is around rental and both, creating additional inventory to get more heads and beds, if you will, but as in conjunction, there's a safe harbor management component to that. And certainly with the way the state is structured, what is eligible for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory rental, you get the much bigger bang for your buck. But now we're really at a point where we want to think about like the longevity of folks who are community members providing essential services in a variety of capacities. And I think the pandemic has helped redefine, what are essential services in any community. And I guess I would add at the recent tax credit award event where the governor and lieutenant governor and Secretary Keneally, et cetera, were all in attendance. Ownership has really become a major priority for the governor. And part of what he is seeking to do with the ARPA money is to allocate 300 million of that, of $1 billion toward home ownership opportunities. So we're, I think we're thinking the right thoughts. And so the next phase here, a couple things, as folks know, there are a group of us who are headed over to the Vineyard on Friday, along with folks from the Land Bank and others. Libby Gibson, our town manager, is making the trek as well. And we are meeting over there with Philippe Jordy of the Highland Housing Trust, along with the Land Bank folks over there. And they're really sort of our two goals for the trip. One, to get a little better understanding of how the Community Land Trust has worked over there and the benefits that it's provided, as well to look at some examples and discuss with their Land Bank folks, how their Land Bank has played a role, if you will, in developing year-round housing on the Vineyard, which they have done in several different instances. So we, coming back from that, I think at our August meeting are really going to want to elevate this discussion. We've reached out to John Davis, the gentleman I mentioned a moment ago at Burlington Associates, about, okay, in moving this forward, what really is involved, give us, an idea of order of magnitude on cost and timetable and so forth. And so we hope to have that information for the August discussion. Similarly, I think we want to be thinking about perhaps establishing a committee, much like we had in the form of the Neighborhood First Advisory Committee, where we can benefit from outside perspective and expertise through both year-round and seasonal residents, and work on the formulation, not simply of the Community Land Trust itself, but also to the point that Dave Arminetti was just making about down payment assistance, how a public-private partnership to address that end of things might fit into that model. And I'll leave it there for now.
Great, thank you, Tucker. Any questions from the board? Penny?
Yep, I would hope that we could have very broad representation on that advisory committee. I think we need more people from the development world going forward.
Penny, when you say the development world, can you elaborate on that, what that means to you?
Yeah, I think it comes back down, as always, to lack of inventory, and we need people who are familiar with how to create inventory and how to work within the regulations and how to collaborate going forward. I just think we need a broader range of perspectives than we had on the Neighborhood First Committee.
And Tucker, remind me how large Neighborhood First was. Was it 11 people?
I believe
It was 11.
Yeah, I think it was 11. Yeah.
Do you see that, Penny, with looking for same target number? I think there's probably a handful of municipal boards need to be represented, but outside of that group.
Yeah, I served on Neighborhood First, and I felt that that committee could have been more broadly representative of the community than it was.
My one comment along that the direction Penny's going is I think banking and finance is going to be a critical represented group in this structure.
Agreed.
And so I don't know what that looks like, if it's, I don't know if it's a lender or a bank owner, or at what level, how do we make these programs work? Brooke?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, there's two paths here. There's new unit creation and the scooping up of existing units. It are both could be components of this community land trust. I mean, this could be an entity that has a lot of like sub-targeted programs within it. And so I think it has the potential to be something quite transformative for the community. And I think identifying what constituencies and stakeholders need to be in that conversation to make sure that everything is brought to the table is important without making it so cumbersome that it can't accomplish anything. So.
Penny, back to you.
Yeah, Sully, just to follow up, I just think we often, I think we need to have knowledge of from people that know how to get this stuff done. So we're not just talking in an or less informed way about what's possible.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're looking to, and forgive me for his name, but the gentleman in Vermont at the Institute to kind of who creates these for a living, right? I would think.
Yeah, John Davis.
Davis, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have attorneys, involved in that we have to hire in order to create this. Yeah.
Any more? Nothing from the board. I see two general public members. Any questions or comments from them while I have this item? I don't see any hands. So we'll close that. CPC application discussion. It's the time of year for us to prepare for future CPC applications. So this is kind of the beginning of that process. Tucker?
Yeah, this is kind of like a note here. As folks know, the CPC applications go in around the Labor Day weekend. So at the August meeting, we would be taking up the application that we would want to submit. So there'll obviously be work going on it between now and then. I think we need to think about, what we would like to ask for with the funding that we received at the last town meeting. I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of funding the projects that Housing Nantucket and Habitat for Humanity have planned coming up here. The CPC money, specifically the $5 million bonding, we more or less will have exhausted that, come this fall. And that money has been really critical in the acquisition work that we have done in terms of the various sites that we acquired. Having the CPC money involved with that gives us greater flexibility. Anyway, that's kind of, I just wanted to frame it today. Hear any thoughts that the board has as we, start to work on what the request is, and then, have a more detailed discussion at the August meeting.
Great, thank you, Tucker. Penny?
Yeah, through you, Sully, to Ken or Tucker, were we the only affordable housing that was funded last year?
Ken's shaking his head yes.
So it was 800,000?
Yeah,
Ken?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Brooke?
So it was 800,000 plus the 350 to support the bonding of $5 million. So I would be interested in this idea. I mean, the use of CPC funds on acquisition for our safe harbor and, real estate acquisition, giving us flexibility on how we negotiate for acquisitions has been really critical element of what we've been able to accomplish. And while we have often, we are now the centralized source of CPC funding for other housing entities. I mean, that's sort of a transition that we've gone through. And the reason for that was that timeline flexibility for other organizations. But as it turns out, it's also a really good thing for us. The borrowing authorization also gives us some flexibility in terms of responding to the marketing, being able to add this component to each acquisition that we do. So I would be in favor of testing the waters with the CPC on an additional bonding authorization of some size in lieu of like a specific request for Housing Nantucket or Habitat, which we did last year. And just thinking about that. And then my other question would be, who wants to help with that application from this board? Because we'll have to start work between now and I'm volunteering if people are willing to have me work on it again and we can get the ball rolling.
Thank you, Brooke, for volunteering and getting the ball rolling. I appreciate that. Penny, I saw your hand go up very quickly.
Yeah, I'll work with Brooke on that.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Chip. Tucker, previously when you did the 6 FGR update, there was some comment about a shortfall due to construction costs and overrides. Has the developer indicated any cost or it seems to me that that would be an opportunity to see if the CPC can help us fill that gap?
So back in roughly the April timeframe, when maybe the costs were, they were definitely on the rise and maybe near their peak, they had kind of estimated order of magnitude that, there might be a $5 million gap between what all of the available financing sources would support. My understanding is that construction costs, while they maybe not have come down dramatically, are moving in a better direction in terms of wood pricing and so forth. So I'm sure they're working on putting as fine a point on it as possible. I think they would recognize that, if we were to see our way clear to providing financial support to the project, we're going to want some things for that. And so there's a negotiation to go on at some point, but order of magnitude, without them they have not made a specific request, but they, 5 million-ish is the number.
It'll be interesting to kind of ferret that out with them as an unexpected rise in cost where the money, we don't know where it's coming from now. This may be an opportunity to sharpen the pencil and start to figure that out a little. Anyhow, okay. Any other thoughts on that from the group? We'll work on kind of starting the rough outline and then at the next meeting, carry this as another item. Okay, seeing none, we'll close that for today and keep it out there for next meeting. Item 14, additional priorities. So at the last meeting, we went through a pretty thorough list of about 15 priorities looking forward into the next year, or was it 12? I can't remember, but there were a lot. So Tucker, have more come up since then that you want to identify or kind of revisit any of what they were?
Not necessarily any additional at the moment. This was kind of an opportunity if there were some on that list from the last meeting that folks wanted to circle back to. We had 15 different items on there, and I can screen share if it's helpful to just have them in front of folks. Some of these obviously were covered in what we some of the items that we've discussed so far. I'll mention, I think we talked about this briefly at the last meeting, but the Finance Committee has asked us to attend the meeting a week from today on the 27th to just kind of give an update to them on, how the money's been spent so far, what are the timetables for the projects we have underway, how, how are we intending to spend the monies that were recently awarded, and what additional monies do we anticipate needing? And so we're, pulling that together for a discussion with them next week.
Kind of reviewing the list. Does anybody, Rima?
Yeah, I would really like to put the down payment assistance, like at least a pilot program together, figure out where we can get some money for that, figure out what the pilot amount would be. I mean, originally I was thinking $30,000, but that doesn't even seem like that would be enough for applicants, maybe more along the lines of 50. I really think that we need to be figuring that out and figuring out how we're going to pay for it. So maybe that's a discussion with FinCom. I know, unfortunately, it won't be a discussion with CPC because we're dealing with AMIs that are too high for that funding. So.
Yeah, that's item 3 on the list. It definitely important.
Brooke?
I'm really interested in keeping the zoning review on the, on the table, and maybe forming a subgroup of us that want to keep that moving forward and start having conversations with other groups like the planning board or planning department, and just start doing an assessment process. There may be a fall town meeting. It feels like a big old rush to try to pull anything together for a fall town meeting, but certainly for next town meeting, if there's anything appropriate to bring up, like dormitories and other things that might relieve the housing crisis.
Penny?
Yeah, just the Amelia Drive lot. Should that not be on here?
We can add that.
Do we know what's happening with that Roland house? Is that?
It didn't move before the summer, and I'm not sure if it will be moving in the fall or exactly what the status of it is.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? No, okay. All right, let's see. Who's screen sharing? Oh, thank you, Tucker. So we have discussion, we'll close the additional priorities, move on to other business. We've got a next meeting date of Tuesday, August 17th at 12:30. That work for everybody? Got thumbs up across the board, so we'll keep that one on there. The item number, does anybody have any other business that's not on the agenda to bring up? Seeing none, board comments? Seeing none of those, we'll move to item number 17, executive session. Look for a motion to move us to executive session. Penny or Brooke? Flip a coin, Brooke.
Move that we close the open session to go to executive session, not to return to open session, for the purpose of considering the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Penny by roll call. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Allison Mitchell.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thank you. Give it 4 minutes for a quick break and come back.
Tucker, can you resend the link? I lost it.
Yes, we'll resend that.
Thank you.